cash award of 200,000 naira and a best speaker award of 50,000 naira. Once again, we are all welcome. You are all welcome. Before we begin the debates competition proper, I would want to give a brief introduction of the host of this National Law Debates Competition 2023, which is Honorable Justice Innocent Umezilike Foundation. So I'll be in brief telling us a little about the foundation. Honorable Justice Innocent Umezilike Foundation is an international non-governmental organization that was formed to honor the legacy of late Honorable Justice Innocent Azubike Umezilike, OFR, FCIRB, FIIAN, who at the time of his death was an acclaimed professor of land and property law. He authored over 25 books and served as the Chief Judge of Enugu State, clinching the longest serving Chief Judge in southern Nigeria. Okay, I am going to share my screen so that everyone would be able to see what I'm talking about. Okay, I believe we can all see. Okay, so Honorable Justice Innocent Umezilike Foundation is an international non-governmental organization that was formed to honor the legacy of late Honorable Justice Innocent Azubike Umezilike, OFR, FCIRB, FIIAN, who at the time of his death was an acclaimed professor of land and property law. He authored over 25 books and served as Chief Judge of Enugu State, clinching the longest serving Chief Judge in southern Nigeria. The foundation delivers its mission through the promotion of excellent legal education, research, and charity initiatives. Some of our facilities and programs include the Law Library, Legal Research Center, annual lectures, workshops and seminars, educational grants and fundings. This National Law Debates Competition is part of the foundation's initiative towards legal education and research. So the National Debates Competition 2023, the National Law Debates Competition, just as its name is for law students across accredited law faculties in Nigeria. Its purpose is to promote excellent legal education, research, critical thinking, and advocacy for upcoming lawyers, arming them with the choice skills needed for a successful career in law or legal practice. Additionally, the debate themes, topics, arguments, and outcomes will serve as an outlet for intellectual reasoning, advocacy, and activism by young minds, creating awareness on topical issues of national relevance, with the aim of providing insights into its solutions. So the objective of the National Law Debates Competition 2023 is to promote excellent legal research, education, critical thinking, and advocacy amongst upcoming lawyers, arming them with choice skills needed for a successful career in law, to stimulate solution-driven intellectual reasoning on topical issues of national relevance, with the aim of providing insight into its solutions. Through debate themes and topics, inform and inspire participants and viewers, raise a sense of responsibility, and encourage civic engagement around thematic issues. Now, the goal of this year's National Law Debates Competition is to provide a platform for sound intellectual reasoning, education, research, and advocacy for law students, preparing them for a successful career in law and meaningful contributions to issues of national relevance. And this year's debate themes are on property, land law, and real estate, rule of law and democracy, education and the law, and human rights, especially the rights of children. So for this final round, the debate topic is as follows. In the wake of the several failures of the fourth democracy since 1999 and the slow successes of democracy across the African continent, evidence in the electoral processes, perhaps democracy is not the best for Nigeria and extensively for Africa. So here, this morning, this afternoon, we have Team Beryl and Team Diamond. Team Diamond is for the proposition, while Team Beryl is for the opposition. And by way of introduction, I am Ruth Surenadi, the Associate Head of Legal and Research, Honorable Justice Innocent Umezilike Foundation. Here with me also is the timekeeper, Prince Excellence, the IT specialist of Honorable Justice Innocent Umezilike Foundation. And we also have our distinguished judges, Barrister Ayodele Karide Aishata, and she's the Senior Associate of G. Elias Law Firm. We also have Mrs. Joy Amanabo. She's the Senior Programs Coordinator, LEAP Africa. And we also have as a judge here, Barrister Chile Pascal Onyejelam. He's a lawyer, he's a writer, he's a founder of Gligli Agro Ventures. Once again, we're all welcome. So we would, without much ado, go into the final round of this debate competition. And to open the floor, representing the parliament, it's Team Diamond. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours to the first debater for Team Diamond.
They can only disfigure my face. They can't stop me from voting. These were the words of Efidibina Jennifer after she was stabbed in her eyes for trying to exercise her voting right in Surulere, Lagos on the 25th of February, 2023. What a life. Violent attacks by thugs have been reported in several polling units across the nation, with stolen ballot boxes, shooting at voters and burning of election materials. Is this what we call democracy, or rather a failed system? Good day, panel. My name is Rushewe Oluwakemi, a representative of Team Diamond. This house believes that democracy is not the best in Nigeria and excessively for Africa. This is due to the several failures of our fourth democracy since 1999 and the slow success of democracy across the African continent, evidenced in the electoral processes. The word democracy comes from the Greek word demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning power. In other words, democracy is the power of the people, a way of governing which depends on the will of the people. What we have in Nigeria today, panel, is not the will of the people, but the will of the minority. It is noteworthy that on the 29th of May, 1999, the election of Olusegun Obasanjo brought an end to the 16 years of military rule and democracy was adopted. Panel, it's been 23 years of practicing democracy. What have we to show for it? What have we to show for it? All we see is unemployment, poverty, corruption, leaders' violence, and insecurity. I will start with the case of Fagbe against Echi. The Olu of Warri, who belonged to the opposing party, instructed his chiefs to invoke the wrath of Ishekiri tribal god on any Ishekiri who voted for the petitioner, and his invocations operated on the minds of all the villagers in such a way that they were deprived of their will to freely exercise their choice. Also, in the recently concluded elections, we saw the threats people were subjected to simply because they wanted to vote in the candidates of their choices. The above instances takes away the very essence of democracy, which is personal liberty. It infringes on our rights to personal liberty as entrenched in Section 34, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Panel, democracy, as we all know, ought to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, as defined by Abraham Lincoln. Here comes the big question. Is this really a government of the people? Is it by the people or by the influential? Or is it even for the people or for their selfish gains? Lucky Igbinedon, the former governor of Edo State, in 2008, embezzled $24 million of public funds. Mr. Jean Ibori, former governor of Delta State, embezzled $250 million. Mr. James Bala of Adamawa, 167 million naira. Ojikalu of Abia State, 7 billion naira fraud. Joshua Dabiye of Plateau State, over 2 billion naira fraud. I can go on about governors and ex-governors that came into the office for their selfish gains. This, indeed, is the consequence of a failed system. More so, the just concluded 2023 general elections recorded a lot of irregularities despite the introduction of high-end technologies like the Beavers and IREV machine. The two closest contestants have launched a formal challenge of the results in the courts. This distrust in the electoral process and empire has proven that the democratic government is unsuitable for Nigeria. The sad history of electoral fraud, rigging, corruption, thuggery, and overall malpractice and violence have serious implications on our democracy because this phenomenon is increasing rather than declining. Panel. The opening paragraph of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria provides that we the people, emphasis on we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, resolve to live in unity and harmony. Sadly, we don't live according to the provisions of the Constitution. Like a rocking chair, we've moved from military system of government to democratic system, searching for what would work for us. Perhaps we've tried what would work, but we left it unchecked and imbalanced. Enough of this trial and error. We need improvement. We need renovation. We need total renewal. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the first speaker for the parliament, Tim Diamond. Now we are going to be listening to Tim Burial, the first speaker for Tim Burial, oppose this motion in the next 5 minutes. Tim Burial, your first speaker. Tim Burial, your first speaker. You can unmute and then put on your video and proceed.
Video. You're there. Pressure start.
Regurgitating John Lewis in his piece on a vision for change. Democracy is not the struggle of one day. Ours is the struggle of 1 week, of 1 year, and ours is still not the struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime or maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. John Lewis regurgitated it concerning the United States at the time where the United States was going through serious political setback in their climb. Currently, the United States has not still reached the highest trajectory, but it's still number 26 according to the Economic Intelligence Unit, which Nigeria is in 100 is the 106 on the top democracy index. We are not saying that Nigeria democracy is good, and that is the importance of the introduction. But then rather we are saying that Nigeria still has the potential to attain such if given such climb. The impact of this is that the government has the obligation to not just say democracy is bad, but then also prove that other systems can adequately reconcile the extraordinary plurality of religions, ethnicity, and political tradition of the large population. Because notice that democracy is the only system of government which can create a fair society without amounting to oppression or exclusion of considerable parts of the population. But they notice that even and also by rejecting democracy, they also need to adequately prove a system that can cater for such. Because notice that all their harms are not exclusive in their world. Because by simply stating that corruption has been done, by Orji Zokalu and the likes. Notice that Abacha had looted money, which is still being recovered till date. Corruption is not exclusive in the military system of government. The only system of government gotten from them was the military system. Notice that in the military system, there was absence of fundamental human rights. There was even a system whereby the NSAS protests cannot even emanate because of the lack of the right of freedom of expression, which is entrenched in Section 39 of the Constitution. Notice that the entire Team Barrel is not saying that democracy is good. But then we are saying that democracy is the only adequate structure that can ensure the progressivity that we hope Nigeria to attain. Why? Because in democracy, we actually have incorporation of more, because we are able to protect the right of minority. Notice that Professor Wabreze gave in his speech that is the reason why the Constitution was created, in order to entrench the rights of individuals, the fundamental human rights of individuals and of minority. But also, democracy is best because of the right of expression and the right before the presence of fundamental human rights in entirety. But then also notice a very, very important implication of if Nigeria leaves democracy. Notice that Nigeria is a member of international organizations, the United Nations and other regional bodies that assist Nigeria. Recently, Nigeria borrowed up to ₦1 billion from the United Nations in order to satiate our palliatives. Notice that by leaving, we now set a assist us in any manner.
So I think Timberry is having they're having slight challenges with their network. We've paused their time. Okay, you can continue. We paused your time, so you can continue.
Okay, so we are saying that our democracy can actually be effective by creating by propagating ideals that we are one, because one major problem of democracy in Nigeria is the fact that we don't have a nationalistic spirit. By infusing that what affects one another will affect the entire society, will actually be very important in actually creating this democracy. That is by the inclusion in schools, inclusion in schools, advocating it in movies and all of that. This is very important. And also independent judicial system. I would regurgitate the words of Justice Umezulike and the
Okay, Timberry, you can continue. Your time was paused. You just have 19 seconds more. You're still muted.
Ma, can I be heard? Hey, Jesus, you're not off again. Ah, Jesus Christ.
You're still writing exam, that's why. You're still writing exam. God, I'm so sorry. Continue. It's unmuted.
It is not showing.
It's showing behind this one. I think you opened another file.
Oh,
Get the laptop.
okay.
Continue.
And we also need judges that are efficient. We also need judges that are efficient in canvassing the law as it is. And this is why we need judges like Justice Umezulike. And this can be done by infusing it in the democratic structure and in the judicial structure, that judiciary should be independent. Democracy can be achieved, and we believe that can be done in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the first speaker for Team Burial. Thank you. Remember the topic of this final round, for the purpose of reiteration, it's in the wake of the several failures of our fourth democracy since 1999 and the slow successes of democracy across the African continent, evident in the electoral processes. Perhaps democracy is not the best for Nigeria and extensively for Africa. So we'll be listening to the second debater for Team Diamond. The Parliament proposed this motion in the next 3 minutes.
Over 6 decades ago, an African giant was made. A new dawn came upon us. It was indeed an unforgettable experience as Nigeria gained our independence. There was so much joy in the heart of people. A sensation of freedom, peace, and unity was felt. Our leaders felt fulfilled. However, the big question is, do we still live in this glory? Good day, esteemed panel. I am Muraola Okuneye, a representative of Team Diamond. To further lay credence to the first speaker's proposition and to affirm the assertion that democracy is not the best for Nigeria and extensively for Africa, the proposition will be revealing the challenges faced in our so-called democratic country, which makes it a failed system. To start with, ever since the Nigerian democratic dispensation commenced, there has been a retrogressive society rather than a progressive one. This system is only a means for the selfish leaders to acquire power continuously, and this will definitely graduate into an authoritarian government if not quickly addressed. A lucid example of this is Botswana, which has the longest uninterrupted democracy in Africa. It is reported to be a negative government trajectory, as Botswana Democratic Party had sustained its dominance, which eroded democracy and is discreetly slipping towards authoritarianism. Furthermore, corruption has to a large extent hindered the democratic dispensation of Nigeria. As a result of corruption, nepotism has gained traction in Nigeria, and this is prohibited under the Section 14, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yet, it is still practiced in Nigeria by our so-called democratic president, especially in his appointment of government officials without observing federal character principle, among other ethnic groups. Conclusively, despite several years of practicing democracy, insecurity is still Nigeria's biggest challenge. According to a report published by Paul Adeyeye, dated 30th of September 2022, insecurity has caused over 37,500 deaths, 2.5 million displacements, and 257,000 refugees. What a dilemma. My heart breaks and bleeds for Nigeria, the giant of Africa. Panel, I asked a question earlier. Do we still live in this glory? Not anymore. We don't. This boils down to the fact that the giant of Africa has now become a slave to corruption. What then is the way forward? The only way forward, I repeat, is for a significant change in Nigeria. I will end with the words of James Robinson, an award-winning political scientist, who said, and I quote, "The success or failure of a nation lies in the hands of the people." Thank you.
Thank you to the second speaker for Team Diamond. Now, in the next 3 minutes, we'll be listening to the second speaker for the opposition, Team Burial.
Good afternoon, panel. Panel, I would like to first note that the argument topic states that the fourth democracy failed and democracy failed in Africa. The proposition team did not address this. It is the Nigerian government in their fourth republic that failed, not democracy. In fact, Bishop Puka argues that even at its first democracy, clocking 40, Nigeria is still far away from the principles of democracy, meaning that it's not democracy that failed, but Nigerian government that has failed to achieve democracy. Additionally, for Africa, the Institute for Security Studies reported that the problem is not democracy, but poor leadership. In an article, a 2019 Afrobarometer report found that large majorities of African countries continue to support democracy, and they reiterate that they don't want authoritarian or They instead insist that the government enforces democracy and are accountable to them. To ensure a government that will suit the people, is it not best that you take the opinion of the people? If the people in Africa and Nigeria do not want an alternative government, they recognize the fact that democracy itself has not failed them, and they only want the government to uphold the principles in Nigeria and Africa. Who are we to tell the people what they want? Additionally, the team stated that stolen ballot boxes and corruption and insecurity are failure in Nigeria, and that democracy is a retrogressive principle. They have not proposed any alternative. There is no other system that will allow for various ethnicities and minorities. And yes, allowing the interests of minorities is a good thing. If the interests of minorities are not protected, the interests of the citizens as a whole are not protected, democracy is a system that allows for these interests to be protected. And no other system of government was preferred by the parliament to protect the interests of the minorities. Also, they kept repeating, what have we addressed by them? They also give away the principles of problems, but that is not democracy's fault. It is the people's fault. Would they do different in another system? This is a recurring problem. The election recorded irregularities. The people achieve our will through democracy. Even though the election recorded irregularities, the problems are taken to the court to be solved. Additionally, democracy ensures that their will is being done through them. Now, the parliament failed first to propose an alternative, but we will do this when the instruments of democracy are upheld and that they are transparent. Nigeria works toward this. Trying to overthrow the system and establish a new one is going to be a problem that Nigeria cannot face. When we establish democracy properly, the system itself will not fail. If the government of the people do not let the people down and achieve true democracy, upholding its very principles, then there will be no problem with democracy. Also, my partner also stated that we gain aid from international organizations and that civil disobedience is the reason for the failure. If all these things are solved, there is no way that democracy will fail Nigeria, as democracy is the perfect system that Nigeria's needs. Thank you.
Thank you to the second speaker for the opposition. Now, to crystallize this round, in a minute, we will listen to the first speaker for the parliament. Tim Diamond.
Panel, democracy might have failed by the government using us as an instrument. Democracy might be the best of all systems, but it is never the best for Africa, especially Nigeria, because mutual tolerance doesn't exist, thereby making democracy success slow. Many failures have been attached to Nigeria democracy dispensation, including this first democracy. It was reported by the Financial Times of London in a report dated 20th of March 2023 that this last concluded election was badly flawed. Panel, the popular definition of democracy by Abraham Lincoln, that it is the government whereby people are entrenched with rights to rule because the government belongs to them. The question is this definition working in accordance with the democracy in Africa? Obviously not. Therefore, I suggest another name should rather be given to this failed system. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was the first speaker for the parliament, crystallizing this round. Now we are going to listen to the first speaker for the opposition in a minute.
No, don't worry. So now they stated that democracy is not best for Africa. What then is best for Africa? And we go back to this same problem they have failed to address. What is the alternative for Africa, if not an improvement on democracy? As stated earlier in our arguments, Africans want democracy. The only thing they ask for is for the government to uphold the principle of democracy. How can Africa improve without aid from foreign organizations? We know that if Africa operates a system of government that is not acceptable, maybe a tyrannical system, an autocratic system, will not receive as much aid as possible. So how is democracy a failed system? What other system do they propose? I will end this argument with the famous words of the former British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, who states that democracy is the worst system of government, except for those before it. If an alternative is not produced, no one has the right to say that democracy has failed the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Simberio. Thank you. So with that, we have come to the end of the final rounds of the National Law Debates Competition 2023, organized by Honorable Justice Innocent Umezilike Foundation. But before we end, from our distinguished judges, would listen to their feedback and inputs on the debates by the debaters so far. So I think we'll start with Barrister Ayodele Kadiri of GLIS. Meanwhile, I want to specially welcome you're welcome. It's good to have you here. And I hope you'll be able to say one or two things concerning your observations from this debate round. Okay.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. All right, Barrister Ayodele, let's hear you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the judges. Good afternoon to the participants. I think that the arguments, given that the time is not exactly um, ample, it's still been a very interesting exchange of ideas by all the participants. Well done. I think the first thing for me is, noting that of course there's so much that can be said within 10 minutes, is that because the topic says Nigeria and extensively Africa. There seems to be a lot of focus on Nigeria, with very minimal discussions or reference to Africa as a whole. I think that was just really one thing that I was on the lookout for arguments on Africa. And then I also think that it would have also been nice to not have to also hear what would work if democracy is not going to work. That would have also been a very interesting perspective. And I also think that it would have also be nice to have discussions around, if something is not working, does it mean that does it derogate from the future? So, for example, the very funny Panadol advertisement. If it's not Panadol, it cannot be Panadol. For the opposing party, they seem to say that even though it's not working, we can still stay with it. But I don't hear that argument from the parliament saying if it doesn't have all of those features, then no. I hear the parliament saying that it's because it's not working. That's why democracy is not good for Africa. So the question is it because it's not working that we don't want it, or is it just not suited for Nigeria and Africa? I don't know if that distinction makes sense. So I was expecting that the argument, because we all technically, I think there's a consensus that democracy, we're not doing it well in Nigeria, but does it mean that it's not going to be suited for Nigeria? I think there are two different questions. So, and I expected that debate. So, what has happened is that the opposing team has capitalized on that part. And I've said, well, the fact that it's not working doesn't mean that it's not suited. But you've not told us as the parliament that even though it's not working, yes, we agree that it's not working. If properly implemented, will it be good for Nigeria? So, what I was expecting to hear is, well, it's not working. That's a moot point. If it's not working, then why are we doing it? If it's not Panadol, it can't be Panadol. But outside of that, the other question is this suited at all? Should we talk about democracy? And which also links to my first point was, if we had an alternative, then if you had proposed an alternative, then we'll see why democracy is working. But all in all, I think all the parties have done well. Thank you very much. Interesting quotes, interesting references to reports, interesting composures, even though village people in the form of internet network decided to be very naughty, but still nicely done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Barrister Ayodele Kadiri Aishata, one of the judges for this final round. the Senior Associate of GLIS. Thank you for that input. It was really well thought out, and it showed that you are really part of this. Thank you. So we'll hear the input from Mrs. Joy Amanabo. She's the Senior Programs Coordinator, LEAP Africa, and one of the judges for this final round. Ma, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I've had a good time listening to everyone. It's been really interesting. I like the energy. Both teams had this fine energy they brought in. They had their own unique style, and it was so good to see. I'll try not to repeat what Barrister Ayo has shared. So I think I will focus on maybe presentations and some of the things I saw. Absolutely well researched, so good work there. But for, I think, Team Diamond, I don't know if it was maybe a uniform, maybe with the eyeglasses, I don't know, and maybe positioning of light, even just getting your eye contact. At some point, I felt like you were reading off a note and you just wanted to go by your notes or something.
Okay.
So
you can continue.
Okay, sorry. So it felt like, you were reading off your notes. And so I didn't maybe catch that flow because I felt like you were just trying to go by your notes, by what you had written in your notes. And so I saw just a little bit of rebuttals, not a lot of it. I felt you could, maybe from even the very first time you came up, envisage possibly what your opponent would say and even start having rebuttals for it. But it just felt like you wanted to go by your notes, by all means. So just very few rebuttals really. But overall, I think it was good. For team 2, I would say preparedness, right? So I didn't see, so when I mean preparedness is, that this was going to be a virtual debate. So even just setting up your camera right on time, having things set, you being, there. I know network came up, but I'm not even referring to network. Just at the beginning, you were called up. You were called up a number of times before your camera eventually came up. I just felt like you didn't seem so prepared. And maybe that affected you a bit. I'm not too sure, but I did love the energy that you brought in. Then I saw that when your internet went off, there was a bit of agitation, all of that. I guess it's maybe pressure and all of that, but hey, be cool, be calm, and all of that. But I saw a lot of rebuttals from your end, and I think that was really something that I liked. Just even having rebuttals. Your opponent said this, blah 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 blah, and just heading at it. So I think that was good. Yeah, pretty much it from my end. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mrs. Joy. Thank you for that insightful contribution to this final round. I'm sure the debaters have taken note of the things that you mentioned. So, okay, Barrister Chile, you're already up. Can we hear you? Your feedback, your input about this. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. So my co-judges have already elaborated on the observations, and I think I share similar sentiments. So just 4 quick additional flavors to what they've said. So I would say, first off, congratulations to all the participants. Yes, like they've highlighted, well researched, wonderful emotion, and so on. And the second thing, therefore, for the parliament. So this is my take. I think the topic or the debate topic actually gives somewhat of an edge to the parliament. So I was expecting, if you're going to take a stance, when we were debating back in school, we call it, we either do a yes and yes, or you do a no, but what then? So a yes and yes is, it's working. Irrespective of the flaws, irrespective of the shortcomings of democratic practices, the electoral processes being flawed, it's working. And you give your backup reasons to even show where the so-called first world countries, where they also have manipulation of election results and their own shortcomings, and yet we call them the shining light of democracy. So you could either do the yes and yes, that irrespective of this is working. So in doing the yes and yes, you preempt what the opposition are going to cite as loopholes of democratic processes. And then you also puncture those demerits that they are going to use to counter you. So you preempt them already. So I was expecting if you're going to do that yes and yes, then you stick to it. Or if you're going to do a no, but what if? That's like what the first judge highlighted. You would have said, okay, yeah, if it's not working, but then you go. I think it was a mixture of the two, so it made it a bit here and there for them. But that's not to take anything away from their point. Then for the opposition, like the last judge who spoke highlighted, I think the first speaker was also guilty of almost seeming like trying to look at a material somewhere. And then I think she was also animated. So I get the passion. The passion was flowing initially before the network problem, but it seemed the whole she couldn't manage the situation. So I think I had one of them say Jesus Christ or something. So it got in the way of the presentation. So it shows you're still human. Then yeah, like the last speaker also said, I didn't see so much of rebuttals, and the few I saw were very watery. But I will give kudos to the second speaker of the opposition. I so much enjoyed the rebuttals. That's exactly what I was expecting. So, but all in all, nice performance from them all. Wonderful energy, nice research, and I love the quotes as well. So kudos.
Thank you, Barrister Chile. Thank you for that contribution. So, Barrister Olajuself Ma, do you have something to?
I'm not going to say anything because I won't comment on the performance. I think both teams did very well. I didn't join at the beginning. I only joined to listen towards the end. I was in a meeting, and I thought, let me pop in briefly to just see what this is about. I found it very interesting, and I agree with, just listening to the end of it, I agree with the points from all the judges. I think for the parts that I listened to, I generally agree with Ayodele and Pascal and Joy's comments. They made very, 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 very valid comments that I think I actually picked a few of the things they said, in some of the speakers' contribution. So yeah, let's just wait for them to decide. Let's wait for them to decide. Thank you very much, Ruth.
All right. Thank you so much, Ma. Like, once again, we are honored to have you with us in this final round. And I would end with saying congratulations to the debaters. You've put in time, you've put in energy, you've put in research, you put in hard work, from the elimination round video to the quarterfinals to the semifinals and up to this. So we await the score sheet from the judges, and like I would usually say, may the best team win. Once again, thank you to our distinguished judges. Thank you to our distinguished guests. And thank you to our debaters in the 2023 Honorable Justice Innocent Umezulike Foundation National Law Debate Competition. And with this, we'll draw the curtain on this year's National Law Debate Competition. Just as we've communicated to the debaters, you would get to know the winners soon, and all other processes with respect to the award ceremony and all will be adequately communicated to you. Congratulations once again, and have a pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma.